So today I'm going to talk about that elephant in the room. Not that one, the other one, Wayland. Anybody that's been using Linux for any length of time already knows that Wayland is where we're headed, and Xorg is already on the chopping block for being extinct. So sooner or later, I gotta get using Wayland. Wayland and me has had a pretty rough start. I guess it's because of my hardware configuration and the fact that I'm creating content and so forth. OBS Studio never has really worked well for me with my hardware setup and with OBS Studio. And so for whatever reason, it seems like other people don't have as much trouble as I did. Maybe they have, but for me, it's always been a constant headache. I've been kind of avoiding Wayland for as long as possible and staying in i3, which happens to be my favorite X11-based window manager desktop environment, or tiling desktop environment. Maybe that's a better way to put it. And so what I decided is Wayland's not going away. It's just going to become more and more prevalent. You got distros like Fedora that are going Wayland only and so forth, and you're going to see more and more of that going forward. And so everyone's migrating over to it, and I feel like I got to somehow like it or lump it. So I'm going to lump it. Actually, but seriously, Wayland has improved quite a bit, and my situation, even OBS Studio, has become usable for me. So that's probably the biggest milestone that I can say about it so far, because that has been the one deal killer for me, is the fact that I couldn't record in OBS Studio. And the other one, of course, is the VMs. When you get into a virtual environment, I could not transfer the key bindings from the host machine to the guest machine. So if I was in a virtual machine and I was doing a video on using a different window manager, like i3 or Hyprland or whatever, I could not use the key bindings, because if I was going to press Super B, for example, to launch a browser, it would launch a browser on my host machine and not within the virtual machine. But luckily, Hyprland has a workaround for that. And the reason key bindings are kind of a pain in Wayland-based desktops is because, I think probably because of their anti-key logging feature that's kind of part of Wayland. And so when, in the case of like OBS Studio, when you want to use a OBS Studio key binding when OBS Studio is not actually in focus, like if I'm over on workspace 1 and OBS Studio is in workspace 5, and I want to use my Alt-M key binding to pause the video, I can't do it because it won't recognize it. However, Hyprland has kind of solved that problem for me, and so I can put in some pass-through bindings in my config file and make it work. So that's great, and I can do the same thing in a virtual machine, and I'll show you that in a minute. So that is one of the biggest things that made Wayland usable for me again. For me, that's really great news, and probably for a lot of other people too. So because of that, Hyprland has become my window manager, tiling desktop environment, whatever you want to call it, of choice, because of the fact they've kind of worked out those pass-through problems. Originally, I kind of went to Sway, because Sway is like the Wayland version of i3, and so I thought that would be a natural progression, but Sway does not solve those issues with the pass-throughs. At least there was nothing I could find on it. So Hyprland was the natural choice after that, because I did discover that you can easily do it in Hyprland. So that's awesome. So this is my Hyprland setup here. This actually is CachyOS. This is a fresh install of CachyOS. And so if I pop over here, hey, who's that? That's Derek on his options channel. And he does a great job with options, by the way. I learned a lot from him. So here I installed Cachy a few days ago, like I was saying. What I did was I did a fresh install of the Hyprland desktop. So I went in and right from the live version, I installed Hyprland. And I added Cosmic Desktop in there too for good measure, just because I want to keep track of the project. But when you go to the download page, you can see that CachyOS offers a whole range of desktop environment, tons of things like KDE Plasma, GNOME, XFCE, i3,
Waybar, LXQ, OpenBox, Cinnamon, Cosmic, UKUI, LXDE, Mate, Budgie, Qtile, Hyprland,
and Sway. So what a ton of choices. Cachy's actually become my favorite Arch-based distro here now that Arco Linux is gone, and it was kind of creeping up there anyway, because Cachy is really optimized for speed and performance. And so for me, that was a real selling point. Well, why not just use straight up Arch? What the heck? Well, the way I look at it is, why should I go out and buy a car that requires assembly when I can already buy one pre-built for the same price, free? that's already built, ready to go, optimized for speed and performance. And I don't have to do anything. So for me, it's a no-brainer. But wanted to give a quick shout out to Cachy. I'm real happy with Cachy, and I've been using it for a while now. And here I'm running CachyOS, as you can see, with Linux kernel 6.15, the newest version, using ZSH. Originally, this was configured with fish, but I don't like fish. So I changed it to ZSH. You can see it's got the Cosmic Desktop installed also on the side, but I'm in Hyprland right now. And then Alacrity is my terminal and so forth. So yeah, this is kind of a quick and dirty look at my setup here. So I'm really happy with the way it looks. And what I did was I modified the Waybar a little bit, and I'm using a layout that I borrowed from JaKooLit, because originally I had JaKooLit set up here on Hyprland before I reinstalled everything. So I still got the files from it. So right now, it's kind of like JaKooLit Lite. This is my weather app, by the way, and I kind of customized that to open up the add window as well. And so what I did was I took a few scripts and integrated them with my Waybar setup, because my Waybar was originally set up with the JaKooLit post-install script anyway for Hyprland. So I thought, why not just use those? This is my wallpaper changer, and these are the wallpapers that I got with JaKooLit install. So I like that, and that was a cool app too. What I had to do was I had to install BC, I think it was for this. For this, I think I had to install Python PyQuery and Python request, I think, for that to work, if I remember right. There's a nice wallpaper. I think I'm going to stick with that. I thought I'd change it while I was in there. But the wallpaper changer is really nice, and I really like that. And of course here, I got a working 100% OBS Studio, knock on wood. It'll keep working, but now OBS Studio seems to be working for me without giving me trouble. And then here, this is a little widget that was set up by JaKooLit as well, which I borrowed. And I'll show you how I did that in a little bit. Here I can change all kinds of different themes and layouts here. This is the layout one. And top default old version 1 is the one I'm using right now. But if I change it here, it just instantly changes. And so I can choose from a ton of different layouts. And this is really nice. I'll probably do a full JaKooLit install again, because I really like his post-install script there. And you can do it for Debian, Fedora, Ubuntu, and of course Arch, which I'm on right now. 0JA0, that was like the original, and I'll pop it on there too a little later. I could try like Peony, and then this is the bottom layout. So there's a ton of layouts available for the bottom too, if you like your bar on the bottom. There's another one, Gardenia, and that's also kind of like not full length. So if you kind of like the shorter bar, those are some options as well. But you could go with like bottom simple, and then you get something that's full all the way along the bottom there. And so that's not a bad choice either, if you like something on the bottom. They also have that same version for the top too, so you could select that for the top as well. So yeah, but as you can see, there's different options here in different layouts. So some of the options I had on the other bar, I don't have on this one, and vice versa, probably. But the layout that I chose has the most options in it. That's one of the reasons I went with it, I think. And I just kind of like the design of the workspaces icons too. So here is the style menu. And so what I did was I pressed Control Super B to get the style menu, and then I can change the way it's styled. Same layout, but styled totally different. And now it looks more kind of broken up because it's transparent in between. I could use a latte style, and that gives me a semi-transparent background and same layout. And by the way, for layout bindings I had for that was Super Alt B. So this one, I forgot what I just clicked on. That's another layout, style. And I think the style I was using before was, let me go back to the default old layout. This is what I was using originally. And in this style here with the dark background, since I got that style back, I might as well just bring my bar back so I can pick up where I left off. This is another widget. So here, if you left click, you can change it to a light theme. Middle click again is the wallpaper, and then the right click is your styler, which we were just in. And there's my calendar widget. And if you click on the clock, then it'll display the date up there alongside the time too. So that's kind of cool. So I'm really comfortable in my new Wayland home. And then of course that turns off your inhibitor. And so I turned mine off right in the config because I never like it on. And there's my hint. So if you click that, that's another JaKooLit script and it's not working. So I must have forgot to bring that bash file over. So I'll do that in a little bit too when I show you where the bash is located, those scripts. And then here I got my sys tray and then Bluetooth. And then of course my volume control so I can click it up and down. And I got it set to increment in 2% increments and then use my keyboard and it increments the same, but with a different graphic, which is cool. Liking that. And then my keyboard layout and power bar. So hit the power thingy there and I can select, or if I can use my hotkeys here, Super Alt L, and get to it that way. And I get a little bit of a different layout there, which is really cool too. I like that layout even a little better. But I put those hotkeys in there so I could have easy access to that. So I'm liking that. So let's go in and check out my config file here. So I'm just going to bring up Genie here. I got this set to launch on Workspace 3. And if I go up here, all this stuff here on the top are all defaults that I got. And let me just go back to my Thunar here and just kind of show you where all that stuff's located. So if I pop in here to .config/hyper, that's the Hyprland conf, which actually points to all these config files here in the conf folder. What I got open right now are the keybinds. And so that's the main thing that I modified here, the biggest thing. And so here in my key binding, I got my pass-through bindings, which allows me to use my keybinds in OBS Studio. Alt-M is hotkeys that I got assigned inside OBS Studio. And for that to work in a window that's not in an unfocused OBS Studio window, then that pass-through will allow me to do that in Wayland. It's great that I have that option. And like if I want to use a VM or anything else, this will allow me this Super Shift P designated by main mod. This Super Shift P will pass through my key bindings to the, for example, VirtualBox if I'm running VirtualBox. And then if I hit Super Shift P again, then it'll reset those bindings back to the host. So that's how I can use my keybinds inside a VM. I like that a lot. And then of course I got my Firefox and I have it set to open up in Workspace 2. So every time I run Firefox, and then of course my OBS Studio opens in 5 and my code editor in Workspace 4. And I got Clipchamp Video Editor, which I use once in a while. That's kind of a cool little app, but actually I don't have my main app in there yet. And then Genie I got set to open up in Workspace 3, but I forgot to add in Shotcut. That's another one I like to use, so I think I'll add that in while I'm talking about it. So I'm just going to make a shortcut, and this will kind of show you real quick, adding in a key binding, which is quite simple. Basically just copying the other entries there. So shortcut, I'm going to do a bind double D equals, and then main mod, which is your super key variable, and then S, I guess I'll do for shortcut, then comma, and then a comment open shortcut, comma, and then we'll exec that, and just, we want that open up in Workspace. Maybe I'll do that in Workspace 3 as well. And then we'll call shortcut, which is our command. And it didn't like something. So, what did I forget? I must have forgot something. Oh, I forgot to put a comma after exec. There we go. Let's save that. Control S. And something's still wrong. What did I do? Let's see. Okay, I got my comment. Exec, comma, Workspace 3. That looks okay. Nothing spelled wrong. Oh, I see what the deal is. I forgot to put a comma after main mod. I gotta have one in between main mod and... So let's just stick a comma there. Hit Control S to save. And now it's happy. Yay. Actually, I'm gonna test it out, but my editor's already in Workspace 3, so I think I'll change the workspace to maybe 6. Then save it. And now I'll do Super S and see if it opens up. And if everything worked right, it will. Yay! Whoops. I accidentally clicked when it was opening, so. But yeah, all right. So there we go. So now I got my key binding for Shotcut. And that's really one of my favorite overall video editors is Shotcut. It's always been really steady for me. Really like it. Like the workflow. And so the rest of the file here, I think is all pretty much default. I did add in this Waybar hotkey, Super W, just to refresh the Waybar, because I don't think that was in there by default. And then for my styles and layout menu for Waybar, I added that in there too, which was the Control Super B and Super Alt B. And then I think that was it. All the rest I think is all kind of default there. So after I did all that, then I kind of went and modified my Waybar a little bit because I moved some of the JaKooLit files. This is my defaults. I think those are all basically the same, except I added the scripts directory variable in there. So I declared that up there. So that was the other change I made. And then this is my custom module. So this is the weather module for my Waybar. And then I got my config over here. And this config was auto-generated when I changed the layout in the utility there on the bar. Here I added this on-click for my weather, which I think I said before, can't remember. But anyways, so I added that YAD call in there. And what it does is it calls a weather.py Python script there in the script folder. And that's the one I think I had to install Python PyQuery and Python-request, I think. And so this config was auto-generated, like I said, when I selected the layout in that little layout utility up here that we were using right here. So when I change that layout, what it does is it creates a symlink and names it config. So that config file is actually a symlink. And I'll have to pop over to the Waybar folder to show you. So here we go, and there's Waybar. So this config file is a symlink into this config folder, and you got all these different configs that we chose from in that utility. And so if we go and look at the properties of this, we got this symlink pointing to top default version 1, which is this one right here. That's my most recent file in the list. And so that's what it's symlinked to. So pretty ingenious. And then for the styling, same thing. When I change the style, it symlinked the styles.css over to Waybar/styles and then dark golden noir, which is what I chose for the style. So that's how that works. That little utility kind of creates symlinks, apparently. Clever little script there. And I think that's a JaKooLit thing there from his utility. And then we got our modules, which shows our modules up there. And like here we got our modules left. And again, this was all generated, auto-generated when I selected the workspace up there. I like the workspace as the little Pac-Man theme. That's one of the reasons I chose this layout. And like I was saying, this hint thing doesn't work. So I forgot to add in the hint script in there. It's like a shell script. And so actually I'd have to go back to my JaKooLit backup file. This is a Hyprland config folder that I used with the JaKooLit. And so if I go in here and go under scripts, there's a thing in here called like key hints. That's it right there. So I'm just going to copy that and I'm going to move that over to my current scripts folder. And I think that's all I need to do to fix it. So I'm going to go back in my Hyper and then scripts and just paste that in. And now it should just work. If I go up here and click it with a little luck, click, there it is. Yay. That's all I had to do. Easy peasy. So these are my hints. If I like just maximize that there, Super F, then I can see all my different hints in here. And I'm not sure what all applies because I did do a lot of changes. So some of these might not actually count, but I still like that hint thing working. And probably at some point I'll just add a window rule in there to make that float because I'd kind of like to see that float as well. But for now, yeah, it works. And there's a toggle float, but I don't think that's actually active. Yeah, that's actually bringing up the Rofi menu. So I'll take care of that sometime. So yes, the hints menu. Excellent. With a combination of all this different stuff here, that's kind of made my Wayland home a little more comfortable. And of course, Hyprland goes a long ways to doing that as well. Oh, and there's another thing I wanted to show you. I like to be able to just grab the border, like when I got two windows together, and just drag it. Instead of using a modifier key, I mean, to me, it just seems like it doesn't make much sense to use a modifier key. Although I could just use my key binding too, to like resize the left or right window. But sometimes I just feel lazy and my mouse pointer is right there anyway. So I just like being able to grab it and just sliding it over one way or another. And so I added another little call in my variables folder to make that happen, so that way I didn't have to press, because before by default I had to press the super key and then click the border there and drag. And so I thought, well, that's kind of an unnecessary extra step. So this is what I did to kind of get rid of that extra step and just be able to grab it directly and drag it. And so what I did was I went up here into my configuration and variables comp, and it's located right here in my hyper/config folder. And so it's called variables.conf. And under the general category, I went down here and I added this in right here, which is resize on border equals 1. And so that allows me to resize a window on the border just using my mouse without having to use a modifier key. So a little thing, but you know, sometimes a little thing means a lot. And so now I can just grab it at my convenience and just drag it. So there you go. And I guess the only other thing I would do is probably show you actually what the Waybar looked like when I first installed Hyprland under CachyOS, because Cachy actually was using one of the items in this menu. Originally, Cachy was using this one right here. I don't know if they were borrowing stuff from JaKooLit or what, but this is the layout that was here, and then it had a different style. Capuchin Mocha, I think is what that is. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but let me take a look. Yeah, that's how I remember it. So it looked pretty much like this, give or take, except it didn't have some of my modified, like the weather script and all that, I don't think. But overall, this is kind of how it looked when I first installed CachyOS. So this ought to give you kind of a rough idea of what it should look like. And then, of course, the wallpaper background was that green kind of paper. And yeah, I remember that date. It shows a single calendar panel. If you just picture this with that green kind of background that's on the web page of CachyOS, and now we're back to our cool looking power bar there. So nice. Yeah, I am liking it. So this is the way it was originally. And I really love the CachyOS Hyprland, actually, even before adding JaKooLit script, which I haven't done yet. I'm just borrowing some of his files right now. But I'll probably just go full on JaKooLit one of these days again, instead of JaKooLit Lite, like I rigged it up. But yes, I mean, I got to tell you, I've been using this for probably, I don't know how long now, close to a week. And I haven't had anything major at all. In fact, even in Xarchiver, I have drag and drop capabilities in both directions from Xarchiver to a Thunar file manager. That is actually kind of a milestone in itself. I'm impressed there too. And I still got drag and drop issues with Chrome-based browsers. Like if I want to drag something, maybe in GitHub using their drag and drop feature, it doesn't work in Chrome-based browsers. I have to actually use the button to choose the file and add it in. However, in Firefox, it's not an issue, and I'm not sure it ever was an issue in Firefox. It's just Chrome-based browsers for some reason. But that is not even close to a deal killer. I can live with that. So I'm okay with that. I'll be more okay when they fix it someday, but for now, I use Firefox more often anyway. But as far as I can tell, I think that's the only issue that I really have, and that's a minor issue. That's not the deal killer I was dealing with even as recently as a couple weeks ago. So yeah, for me, some major changes have really been happening with Wayland, and I, for one, am really happy to see that, because I'm going to give it my best effort to live in Wayland and not have to jump into an X11 based desktop just to accomplish something that I can't accomplish in Wayland. And so far it's looking like I can do that. Now, it doesn't mean I probably won't add in i3 here at some point, because I just like i3. I think it's just a nice, comfortable environment. However, I want to be able to live without it, so I don't have any X11-based desktop environments at the moment on here. Only Hyprland and Cosmic, so that's it. And I'm going to see how that works out. And if something catastrophic happens between now and the next time I make a video, I'll make a video about it and say, Wayland's out of here again. But I don't see that coming. I really feel optimistic about it, and I think this is going to work. So I'm happy, and I think the elephant's happy. I forgot his name. Stampy? I bought him from some kid up the street. The guy's name was Bart Simpson. Stampy's a good elephant, right? So with that, I guess I'll wrap this up. I can't think of anything else to add regarding Wayland, but Wayland is actually being a comfortable home, and CachyOS I think is the perfect complement to it because Cachy is just optimized so nice, and it's an Arch-based distro, and it's very stable, and I just got nothing when it comes to anything negative about CachyOS. It's just a perfect distro for me. Again, knocking on wood. So anyway, with that, I hope this whole ramble / diatribe / whatever you want to call it was helpful. And if it was, don't forget to leave that thumbs up. And hit that subscribe button while you're at it. Thanks again for watching.